So many gifts. Well, there was a knock on my door, and when I opened it, my housemate stood with tears just streaming down her face. "I just heard the news," she said. "I wanted you to know. Mr. Rogers has died." It was the February of 2003, and I was at seminary in Chicago at Viva Lombard, and my housemate loved Mr. Rogers. In our shared kitchen, she lit a candle at our dinner table in his memory that evening and shared all of the ways that his show had impacted her throughout her growing up. She said, "On the days when I feel despair, even when I was a small child, on those days when I thought I wasn't enough, Mr. Rogers reminded me that I was enough, that I was precious, just as I am." I have to say, Andy and Brian, your song reminded me of my friend in that moment, of how many of us are walking through the world feeling that we are not enough and yet saying it's going to be all right, telling ourselves that. My colleague Derek Jackson reminded me this week of a practice, a way of being in the world and the Zulu culture. They greet each other by saying, "I see you." And when someone says to you, "I see you," that person responds back, "I am here." Imagine that. Imagine walking down the street and someone saying to you, "I see you," and then suddenly you are there. Right? Imagine what a world it would be if that were to happen. By seeing you, I bring you into existence, and by saying I am here, I am validating your observation. And this daily practice, that feels so counter to our current culture. Because I think for so many of us, we walk through life feeling unseen. Yet it is through our relationships that we are known, that we are even revealed. Fred Rogers really understood this truth. As a child, he had been seen, but he had been seen as one thing. He was teased and bullied relentlessly by his schoolmates. And so he became an object of ridicule, a person who could be thrown away by hurtful words. Fred Rogers understood the emotions that he carried as a small child, the sadness, the anger, anxiety, numbness. All of those things went with him. And he knew that a child would carry all of those feelings and those moments with them into adulthood. They did not necessarily go away. And so we resign ourselves as adults. We resign our imagination, telling ourselves that human beings must just be cruel. They are hard to one another. And then we become cruel as we endure our pain. But here's the thing. Mr. Rogers' imagination was bigger than that. His singular purpose in life was to see each person through the eyes of love and to tell them that they are precious. That's all he did. He was a little bit annoying in his habit of doing that. And all of the people who worked with him got annoyed with him because it took so long to do things, because he would take a moment, he would see you and he'd say, "Oh my gosh, how are you, Scott? I see you." And they'd say, "Fred, we've got to get this moving." He tried to see people. And so when a reporter once asked his wife, "What's it like to be married to a saint?" she responded, "It does everyone a disservice to call my husband a saint, because it implies that none of the rest of us can do what he does." When I first became a parent, I read an article about praising your children. Researchers discovered that when a child is offered general praise, you're such a good big brother, it doesn't impact their lives. It does not take root. However, when you offer specific praise, it was so kind of you to offer your little sister a hug when she was crying. You are such a good big brother. That makes a difference. It makes a difference in who they are and how they're going to act in the world. They feel seen and loved. So I want us just take a moment. We're going to take a 1 minute of silence. And for 30 seconds of that, I would like for you to think about a person who offered you specific praise. You can close your eyes. You can leave them open. Just hold them. Offer them a moment of thanks. And now I'd like for you to think about this past week. And think about a person, maybe that you offered specific praise to, that you saw through the eyes of love. And maybe in that moment you said what you saw, and maybe you didn't have a chance. But say it to them again now. I have heard Jackie Brown sing the song, I See the Beauty in You, twice now. Each time I hear her sing that song, I think, how would the world be different if at some point in every day of your life, someone came up to you and said, I see the beauty in you, I see the power in you, I see the love in you, and so it is. How would the world be different? I offer that as a practice this Thanksgiving. No matter how anyone is pissing you off, trying to get into a political conversation, trying to bring it down, you just turn to them and say, I see the beauty in you. How will our Thanksgivings be different? Throughout November, we have been immersing ourselves in specific praise, the practice of praise. We are offering a word of praise to the world, to nature, to people. This morning, you are going to hear Tuli, Scott, and I read you 6 praise poems that are written by Beacon members, by community groups, by leaders, anyone who took a praise poem Mad Lib, which are out on the table out there. You can take one home with you and send it back to us. So we would like to allow their poetry to allow you to see the world with new eyes and the preciousness of this world.
Praise for the dark morning chill that reminds me shadow transforms to light. Praise for coffee's aroma and scrumptious first sips that carries me into the weight of days. Praise for the first frost of yesterday that reminded me love and beauty are fragile. Filled with hope and worry, we breathe and walk slowly through a carpet of leaves. Praise for all that is empty and full of life.
Praise for graceful naked trees that calm my spirit. Praise for cold starry nights that open to infinity. Praise for deep carpeting leaves that protect until spring. Filled with awe, I whisper peace. Praise, praise, praise.
Praise for cool, crisp days that refresh. Praise for warm, cozy homes that invite. Praise for strong, loving communities that support. Filled with praise, we cry out, harumph. Praise for the heartfelt, boisterous laughter that cleanses.